Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to get started, please. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. And as we begin, I just have a couple of announcements that I would like to make. First off, I wish to advise you that Ms. Teresa Sullivan is no longer with the District of Sauk. Any questions in regards that you may have for our CAO, Mr. Brent Blackhall, our Finance Director, is our acting CAO, but he is on a well-earned holiday at the moment. So that means that Carolyn Mushata, our Corporate Officer, is our acting CAO in his absence. So I would just like to thank them for stepping up. We appreciate all your work and your expertise, and I would like to acknowledge Mr. Howard as well, along with all of our other staff who really put their best foot forward, and thank you for all that you do for the district. Secondly, on an exciting note, the budget for the province was released last week, and you may be asking, or some have asked me, what that means for Sauk. And I don't know at this point, but that is going to be unfolded through subsequent meetings that are booked now with the Ministry of Transportation and Highways for Highway 14 coming up in March, and also work happening with Island Health and the South Island Division of Family Practice for expanding out our health facilities is also in the works. So I feel that there's a lot of exciting things to come our way. I'm just not 100% sure on what they are just yet, but we'll be sharing such in due course. There will be a stakeholder, or actually a community meeting scheduled for the public for health in particular in April, so we're just finalizing dates. It'll be a Saturday during the day, so hoping that works for everyone. And Council will also be having an open house in the evening in March on a Thursday night for all of Council and for the public to come in and meet us. I wasn't quite sure of that time, but given the excellent turnout that our emergency support services had when it came to disaster planning, maybe the meeting time will work okay. So I also wish to acknowledge the Chief and our emergency support services for the work that they did that night, in hopes that it gives the residents a bit of comfort and some ideas for planning for disaster. In terms of my first comment, I know that there's media in the room and you may have questions to ask. I know that's the job of media. However, at this point, I can't say anything further on it. That's just the way it is with governing law. So thank you for your interest, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to get right into this evening's agenda. Council, you have that before us, and I believe it'll be to approve the agenda along with the inclusion of some supplementary information that has arrived. And, okay, so I'm going to backtrack here because I see a different screen in front of me. So that is that the agenda for February the 26th be adopted as amended, and that is moving 8.1 to immediately follow approval of the minutes, and 8.2 to follow 8.1, and also to include the new supplementary information. So if I could have someone move that, please. Moved by Councillor Loggins, seconded by Councillor Casper. Any questions? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, and now we have the minutes, please, from February the 13th. Someone like to move the minutes, please? Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Questions? Go ahead, Councillor Parkinson, please.
Through you, Your Worship, on page 14. That was the correspondence from the Sauk Car Show for the sponsorship request. So we were taking it from council contingency, and I was wondering if we have the amount that's in the sponsorship budget. We were going to look into that.
Okay, I'll direct that to Ms. Mushata, please.
We will follow up on that one and ensure that it comes out of the sponsorship account if there is money to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, Councillor Parkinson? That was it? Okay, anything from anyone else? Okay, so a motion to adopt, please. Or we've done that, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor of adoption? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. So then, I know I just amended this, but we moved 8.1 and 8.2 to before or after public question and comment period? Or we didn't move them at all?
No.
We just included the new business. Okay, all right, never mind. So that brings us to item 7 already, to the public question and comment period. So this space here is for any items on tonight's, oh, sorry?
No, sorry, it's the public hearing is before the public.
The public hearing is before, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Public hearing immediately follows the approval of the minutes.
That's right, okay. See, I work better with arrows. Okay, so then we will move into the public hearings and we'll deal with those, and they each have their own public Q&A portion in each one. So I'll turn it over to staff, please, then, for 8.1, which is 6882 West Coast and 1841-1843 Tominee, please. Package 1, thank you.
Your Worship, members of Council, thank you. This evening we will be looking at a public hearing for 6882 West Coast Road. Okay, so the applicant has applied to split rezone this 3/4 of an acre Tominee West Coast Road property. It's currently zoned comprehensive development CD6, and the applicant would like to change that to medium lot residential R2 and small lot residential R3. The owner plans to provide affordable, low-density infill housing opportunities within walking distance to the town centre. The site is located within the sewer specified area and connected to CRD water. Should this rezoning be approved, the CD6 zone would be able to be removed from the zoning bylaw. We have a few photos of the site, which for the most part is vacant. There is one single-family dwelling and one duplex on one of the 3 existing lots. This is an overview of the proposal where the applicant has provided a concept plan showing a preliminary building scheme, the lot layout, parking configurations, and a general landscaping concept. If both the rezoning application and future subdivision are approved, the proposed plan would include the 3 small lots, R3 lots, and 2 medium R2 medium lot residential lots. And so a total of 3 new lots would be created at the subdivision phase of the project. You can see the surrounding uses are for the most part R2. There's some commercial, so it is quite a mixed neighborhood. The proposal shows that, we need 600 square meters for R2 and 350 square meters per lot of R3, and permitted uses include our standard bed and breakfast, board and lodging, home-based business, suites, and vacation accommodation, and we permit single-family, duplex, and suites. Parking requirements would be 2 spots for single-family, 2 per dwelling within a duplex, and 1 per suite. And you can see in this map, the red areas are the proposed parking areas, and then a little bit of landscaping around, and then the existing duplex you can see on the west side. The applicant has also taken some time to figure out some of the rainwater management for the site and how that could be addressed at future subdivision phase. And proposal of some of the building schemes for the area is included here. It's an overview of the proposed zoning, which everyone's familiar with. Related to the official community plan, this is the area within low to medium density low to medium density growth will occur along with some associated and appropriately scaled commercial development. All new residential development shall be challenged by a green build checklist created by the District of Sault, which we don't really have, but in this instance, the developer, he's tried to include a number of those things in his visioning from the beginning. Following objectives help define the intentions of this designation. So ensuring sustainable construction of single-family and multiple-family dwellings, reducing sprawl, ensuring future and existing development minimizes the impact on municipal infrastructure, and supporting mixed-use development and infill where appropriate. The summary of the application, you can see the 4 lot sizes provided there. 2 of them just over the 350 square meters, and the last 2 are over the 600 square meters. Pushing the button. So overall, Development Services is supportive of the rezoning application to permit the construction of single-family homes and duplexes on future new lots. And we'll let council make the motion if they would like to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rice. Questions about the presentation from members of council? Councillor Parkinson?
Through your worship to staff, I understand that the parking is there for the people that are living there. I was wondering if there was any visitor parking included in it as well.
That is not something that had been considered. The only other thing that I did forget to mention is that the applicant is willing to make a $2,000 contribution towards the affordable housing end of things, which is $500 per door. But as far as visitor parking, no.
Other comments or questions from members of council? Okay, so we'll head into the public hearing portion then, and I just have this statement to read. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak at the appropriate time, please commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of tonight's regular council meeting and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the public hearing, will be posted on the district's website. So on that note, I would like to invite anyone forward to speak on Bylaw 691, Zoning Amendment Bylaw for 6882 West Coast and 1841 and 1843 Tominee.
Ellen Lures. What happened to the chair? It's like a milk stool down here or something. Thank you. Put me in my place. Ellen Lures, 5526 Souk Road. I have a couple of questions I didn't quite understand. You've got R2, R3, and suites in duplexes. Are there going to be suites in the duplexes as well? No. Okay. Wasn't quite sure about that. This zoning allows bed and breakfast, boarding and lodging, home-based business, one secondary suite, vacation accommodation. So does that mean if you have suites, you can have bed and breakfast, boarding and lodging? I'm just not sure how that all works. And it says that the affordable housing is a suite. But then you have the affordable housing policy that says the applicant is making a donation of $2,000 towards affordable housing. So which is it, or is it both? I don't understand that.
Okay, so perhaps I can get clarity then on, because we did hear that there's the $2,000 contribution, so $500 per unit, and then maybe Ms. Rice can expand a bit more on the other questions. One of them was whether the suite is the affordable housing, but that's where the contribution is being made, and suites are not permitted in duplexes. And sorry, the other question was something with the B&Bs?
Well,
Sorry, Ms. Lewis.
It's just that the zoning allows B&Bs, boarding and lodging, home-based business, one secondary suite, and vacation accommodation units. So in duplexes, for instance, does that apply then? You could have bed and breakfast, home-based business, but not a secondary suite. But you could have vacation accommodation unit. I don't know how that applies into the duplexes and the single-family dwellings.
Okay. Could I get, Ms. Rice, can you provide a bit more context, please?
Through your worship to Ms. Lewis. Generally, we don't permit, like as you know, there's no suites permitted in duplexes. From the vacation rental perspective, if you can, it depends on the structure of the building, right? So if no one's in it, there's nothing against renting it out as a vacation rental. They'd have to get a business license for that. And so really, this is sort of a site-specific question. It gets very convoluted, and I would hate to mislead anyone. It can be very complicated, so rather than make up scenarios on the spot here, if you want to, I don't know if that helps, but what's permitted here is basically how it works. The list is there, and as long as your site sizing, area setbacks, all the parking requirements and things like that are met, then it's usually okay.
Thank you. And what is the strata in this subdivision?
Are we aware what the strata might be?
Through your worship to Mrs. Lewis, there is one strata duplex existing. Okay. So I'll just go. I can't go back. Can I go back? Sorry, Jen, just to the map. I guess I'll use this one. So the strata would be this particular lot right now. The applicant hasn't determined what the structure will be legally as far as the next phases once the rezoning is approved. They have options there.
And has there been a height discussion on height yet, or is that not part of the discussion as of yet?
Through your worship to Mrs. Lewis, there are height restrictions that are standard for those zones, and they would be required to comply with that.
Okay.
So that would be the 3 stories up to or a maximum of 12 meters maximum. That's what's permitted in the zone.
Okay. And is there any discussion with neighbors if they are affected by the height of a building, such as what happened down on the water side of Souk Road? Is there any discussion with neighbors to let them know that the height can be that, so it doesn't affect them?
The neighbors would have been notified of the public hearing. Would it be that notification went out within a certain radius?
Through your worship, too, to Ms. Lewis, on that, the neighbors are welcome to be here this evening, and they have received notice. And secondarily, related to height, the R3 zoning maximum height for a principal residence is 10.5 meters, whereas in R2, which is your standard single-family dwelling height, is actually 12. So they're not that high, generally speaking, as far as the zoning bylaw context is concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Right, it's actually decreased then because it's going to the small lot, which has a decrease in height. Right. So that's my mistake. I read you the one from the current zone, so okay. It's actually going down in height.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lurs. Other questions or comments from members of the public in regards to this particular public hearing, please?
Hello, Jeff Bateman, 7083 Briarwood. I'm just curious, in the absence of a Build Green checklist, what exactly does the district do in terms of checking with proponents in terms of how they'll be moving ahead? And I guess there will be a BC step code adopted by the municipality in due course. But at this point, I'm just curious, how does one proceed?
I'd like to pass that to staff, please.
Your Worship, to Mr. Bateman. Generally, when we meet with applicants, because we don't have any hard rules about requirements on this type of thing, I try, whenever possible, to have the discussion about how things like rainwater management are going to be addressed on the site, how we can potentially have, higher and better uses within reason closer to town, so we're being more efficient with our decision making and our infrastructure. The OCP, as you know, provides a whole array of mechanisms that we can ask. We can't require in a lot of instances, but it's starting a dialogue, and a lot of the time people aren't even aware that we might like that as a community. And so sometimes it's just about planting the seed, and people are willing to, see where they can get some passive solar gain with better placement of windows, dealing with rainwater management, having less pervious surfaces, increasing their landscaping. There are many things they can do.
Excellent. So I suppose then that the district is living up to the OCP's desire that builders are challenged to some measure.
Your Worship, to Mr. Bateman.
Yeah. Direct your comments to me, Mr. Bateman.
Oh,
but,
hi.
Hi, thank you.
So the district's living up to its commitment in the OCP to challenge our builders to do their utmost to build to green standards, passive solar, and...
I'll pass that to our Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Mr. Bateman, we do what we can with regards to the policies and the legislations that we work with. We try to encourage all our proposals and all our applicants to do better if they can with regards to, as Ms. Rice says, our drainage and our Build Green, but we don't have a hard and fast, or we don't have a set of hard and fast rules that allow us to say you have to do that. But within the auspices within our OCP, we have some language in there that we point out to our people that are applying for building, etc., and hopefully they're listening. Sometimes we are successful, sometimes we're not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman. Any other questions from members of the public in regards to this public hearing? I'll call for a second time, please. A third and final time for 6882 West Coast Road and 1841 and 1843 Tomany Road. Okay, seeing no further anyone, I will turn this back to council then and look for your direction. There was a recommendation to Councillor Parkinson, please.
Through your Worship, may I ask another question, please?
Yes, go ahead.
To staff, please. So there will be two duplexes right now on the property and one house, correct?
As the end result.
Well, there's a house there now, correct?
Okay.
A duplex there now, plus they're going to build a duplex plus a single house?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Parkinson. The zoning permits duplexes on the lots that are over 600 square meters and above. So they may or may not be duplexes, those ones. They could be single family. The 350 square meter ones will be single family. So it depends. The zoning permits the duplexes and the larger ones, but whether that's the choice of housing form or not.
Through your Worship. So how many homes can be built on that property as it stands, and once should they decide to go the full length?
Your Worship, to Councillor Parkinson, we would have 4 single family or 4 duplex units and 2 single-family units.
So
Does that
6.
make sense?
Yeah, 6 homes in total then.
Correct.
And through your worship. So then with that, there would, if there were 6, there would be 12 parking stalls there. People are able to have B&Bs in those homes should they wish, or they're allowed to have smaller homes inside, right? So would it, I do believe that we need more parking, and with this being right on West Coast Road where we have a number of problems with parking on the highway, would this cause a problem with people parking along the roadways? A number of small developments have visitor parking.
Yeah.
The majority of them do. I think that would be a good request. Thank you.
Mr. Hunt?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Parkinson, through our means, through our building permit and our parking regulations pursuant to our building permitting, we can obtain the necessary parking if it was a B&B. If they would go through the rigors of building it and getting a business license, we would capture the required parking within that, within our regulations. And as far as parking on West Coast Road, in working with the MOT, we're working on the issues related to generalized parking on Highway 14 right now. So hopefully we'll have a resolve there.
Councillor Casper?
I'll move third reading.
Okay, so third reading has been moved and by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Loggins. That's basically what's stated. Any discussion then on moving third reading? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And then the other part is that prior to final adoption of zoning amendment bylaw 691, the owner enters into a section 219 covenant to secure provisions of a 2,000 donation to bylaw 259 housing reserve fund establishment bylaw 2006, and the District of Sauk issue a tax receipt for the donation. Moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Loggins. Anything further on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rice. So we'll move into our second one, which is Bylaw 692, zoning amendment bylaw 600-52 for 6726 Eustis, please.
Through your worship to staff, I am a member of the Legion. I do not know whether I have to step out of the room, and if I do, then we don't have a quorum.
You're a member of the Legion.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I have to step out.
I unfortunately would have to leave that decision to you.
Then I cannot vote on this. I would have to step out.
Well, we can't have the public hearing then, so I don't think there's any room for you, need for you to leave.
Right.
Can we phone Councillor Berger?
We
Just question Councillor Casper.
Well, it's been my understanding that if a member of council is not an active member of a board that's making decisions on behalf of an organization or shareholder.
I'm on the Poppy Committee. I sit there and I participate in that organization.
Then I think
you should phone Councillor Berger if you want to go forward with it. It doesn't have to be the executive for council, sorry.
Through your worship, I can certainly try. She does have to be on speakerphone in order to be able to participate. We can have one member participate by phone. So if it's all right with you, I'll just step out, call her, explain that to her, and then we can perhaps come back and I'll just leave my phone at the mic.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. If you can just bear with us for a moment, we'll just see if we can make this happen this evening. Okay, so we do have Councillor Berger on the line, so we'll just wait for Councillor Parkinson to exit, and we still have a quorum with 3 and 1 councillor on the phone, and our procedural bylaw does allow 1 councillor to be present on the phone. So thank you, Councillor Berger, for being there. Okay, so I'll turn this over to staff now, please, for 6726 Eustis. Thank you.
Your Worship, members of Council, thank you. This evening we next have a public hearing for the rezoning of 6726 Eustis Road. This is a rezoning from public institutional, or known as P2, to general commercial, known as C2. The applicant has applied to rezone this property and the applicant, just so you know, is the Royal Canadian Legion. SUPPLEMENTARY chapter, who plan to permit the sale of alcohol on the premise to increase revenue that supports the organization as well as a number of community groups within the district. The property is located within the sewer specified area and connected to CRD water. Oh geez, sorry. Go back. I'm sorry. Okay, so currently, the site, as you can see, is again surrounded by a mixture of uses, including residential, multifamily, institutional, as well as some other commercial zones. So there's a good fit as far as changing things to commercial. A little history on the Legion. It was formed in 1926 and has a long history of supporting veterans and surrounding communities in Souk. Currently, the Legion uses the clubhouse for food and alcoholic beverage sale to members and their guests. It also rents the hall to members, guests, and the community. The lot is presently built out with one existing structure and also has 43 parking stalls. The proposed zoning information is here should we need to refer to it later. There's a site plan of this situation. The existing building is not proposed to change at this time. And the zoning bylaw requirements state that for properties that are within the town center, parking may be reduced by 50%. As the Legion has 42 stalls at the moment, their maximum occupancy for the site would be 126 people, unless a new parking plan was devised. The zoning bylaw requirement for commercial businesses include having landscaping, screening, parking, considering public safety and lighting, as well as pedestrian circulation on site. So a little history as to why this has come forward right now. In January last year, the Liquor Control Licensing Board enabled service clubs to transition their primary club license to a liquor primary license, which allows them to have access to a larger market and thereby increasing revenues. The new policy requires that clubs are in compliance with local zoning regulations, and thus our applicants have applied to rezone from P2 to C2. This would then permit them to function under the pub use, allowing them to sell to the general public. Presently, alcohol sold in the Legion is for Legion members and guests only. As stated in their letter of intent, the Council has, the Legion also aims to support local breweries under the new zone. The minimum lot size for subdivision is 900 square meters. However, they have no intention at this time of subdividing the property. Okay, in relation to the official community plan, the property is within the town center designation, and so we're striving to encourage a town center that incorporates high-quality public spaces and contributes to Souk's history and sense of place. To promote a strong civic presence and high level of public amenity, ensuring future and existing development minimizes impacts on municipal infrastructure and staffing, and require that all new and renovated developments include rainwater management techniques to assist with rainwater detention and treatment of runoff water. So the application summary is here, should we have any further questions. And in summary, our conclusion, the Development Service is supportive of rezoning
6726 Eustis to permit the sale of alcohol on the premise to increase revenue that in turn supports the organization as well as a range of community groups within the district. The applicant is required to meet the general requirements of the zoning bylaw, which include parking, loading, screening, landscaping, as well as signage. And I believe the applicants are here this evening.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Rice. One question I have is, should the zoning pass, will the applicant still need to go through the province for a liquor primary license, or is that already happened, or is that even relevant in this case?
Thank you, Your Worship. My understanding is the liquor license that they have would have to be changed to facilitate the public. Now, whether whether the Legion, being the applicant, has made those inquiries, I'm not sure, but I believe that they would have to get a general liquor license.
Okay,
to
so that
support the use.
Okay,
As I said, I have not been privy to that, and I have not seen it come across my desk either. So.
Because usually there is still a, if that were to happen, then it comes to local government and there's like a public process for that. Is there not? Or I thought there was for liquor primary.
Your Worship, the Liquor Control Branch has changed its method of dealing with liquor license applications, and if the local government can opt out of that component of it, if it feels that it's, if the liquor license is worthy. In this instance, we could look at that because all they're doing is changing the liquor license from members and guests only to the general public. But as I said, I have not seen the applicant's liquor license, nor have I heard of it. The applicant is here. They could probably give us a little more insight into that.
Okay, thank you. Anything from members of council at this time? Is there anything from Councillor Berger on the phone?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, no questions there. Okay. So seeing none, then I will proceed into the public hearing portion then. And before I do so, I just have this statement to read. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available, and you'll see them here in the yellow pages. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of the hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak at the appropriate time, please commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and home address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of tonight's regular council meeting and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the public hearing, will be posted on the district's website. So on that note, I would like to welcome anyone forward to speak on 6726 Eustis, please.
Ellen Lords, 5526 Souk Road. I have a few questions here. One, the hope would be, I assume, under this new zoning that there be increased business, which would equate to increased traffic. So will Gatewood Road be put onto a priority list to move the traffic? Because this is a ridiculous place to turn out of and back down. We all know the problems there. So I really believe that has to be addressed. Another question is the tax exemption that this property has at this point. Does that remain?
Okay, so maybe we'll go in backwards order. I remember asking the question about the tax exemption before, but perhaps staff can explain that one, and then I'll go to Mr. Howitt for Gatewood, please.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember what that conversation was. I don't have the legislation in front of me at the moment, but it will still depend if they are still operating as a nonprofit. So whether they're using their profits to still benefit the community and still essentially operating as a nonprofit, if they're giving all those profits away for the benefit of others, I believe they would still qualify for the tax exemption as a nonprofit. However, if they're going to use those profits for whatever reason that isn't to the benefit of the community, they may be at risk of losing that tax exemption, but we would have to evaluate that when the time comes this year.
Yeah, I sort of remember now Mr. Blackhall stating that every year when we review those, then that would be part of the review process, but that the intent, I think you recall, maybe the councillors present can remind me, I think the intent, though, was that this is done to help them stay within their operations to continue the work they were doing. So then that would all be part of the criteria then that would allow them to continue to maintain the permissive tax exemption. Councillor Casper, please.
Yeah, I just would like to point out for council and members of the public that on page 46 of our staff report, at the top it says the applicant is aware of potential impacts of their existing permissive tax exemption and the need to reapply in accordance with the permissive tax exemption bylaw and the intended change of use for 6726 Eustis Road. Okay. And this was outlined under budget and financial impacts. So that was part of the report that I think was submitted when the matter was first dealt with.
Right. Here it is. It's on in the blue pages. It's at the top of page 6.
I did read that,
okay.
But I still didn't know how that was going to work. Okay.
And the other one was about Gatewood Road.
Yes.
I'll turn that to Mr. Howitt, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. In answer to the question with regards to Gatewood Road, as a liquor license, or excuse me, as a change of zone does not change the capacity of the area that the liquor is being served, there was no need to look at the extension of Gatewood Road to solve the traffic issues there. Parking will be dealt with. Their seating capacity is limited by the building as it exists, and I said there's really no change in the functionality, so there was really no need to look at an alternate access or an area to turn around, if you will.
Okay. It just doesn't make sense, because if you're applying to increase members or people coming in because you don't have enough people, so then the traffic you think would increase. Just makes sense to me. The other part of this is...
Ms. Lures, I don't want to debate this, but one way of looking at it is if the building was initially built for so many people, based on so many as a membership, and if membership has changed or decreased over the years, and this is a way to get the numbers up, then it would actually be the same as it was when it was done previously.
Right, if it was ever that high. Right, I don't know. Okay, another question. Right at present, parking is for members only. Now it says parking will be provided, so what does that mean? That it will be still members only, or will it be for the public as well? Because we all know there's a parking issue in that area already. So will it be members only parking, or will it be public?
Would that change then to be like members and customer parking?
Your Worship, the district from the staff level will have to work with the wording at the parking area with the Legion itself to make sure that the parking is open for, if the rezoning is successful, the parking is available for the general public that they hope to be enticing to come to their establishment.
But this would be the public that is choosing to frequent the Legion, not just public parking.
Yes, certainly, that's what I mean.
Okay,
yes.
Like so customer parking.
Customer parking. I'm sorry, my vernacular with regards to the general parking should be focused on customer parking, yes.
Okay,
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Will there be off sales?
Perhaps if the applicant is here, I'm seeing heads shaking their heads. No.
Okay, that was another question. Okay. It will remain a nonprofit. I'm just crossing T's and dotting I's because I know in the past there's money been given to nonprofits, which is fine, but there's $10,000 outstanding to go for painting the Legion. Now, would this be affected because with a zoning change? Could they apply for a grant? If they change their zoning to C2 from a public, or was it P2? Yeah.
I think any nonprofit is eligible for a grant.
I don't know. I'm just asking the question because it's a commercial zone then.
Like, I think if the Legion ceased to be nonprofit, then they would not be, but any nonprofit society or charity is eligible to provide for grants, but perhaps.
Your Worship, I believe that through the application process, the Legion would have to prove to council that they are a nonprofit. Same as the application that we coming for next year with regards to the permissive tax exemption. They would have to prove exactly what their status is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lurs. Do I have other members of the public that would like to speak on this, please?
I'm Sandy Jarvis, 2349 French Road North. I'm on the board of the Sault Seniors Diamond Jubilee Housing Society, and we're right next door to the Legion. And we brought it up at our meeting on Saturday, and we are not opposed at all. The only thing we ask is that if you do have higher concentration of people, our parking lot of our 3 tiny little spaces that are available aren't for public use, they're just for our tenants and their guests. But we're in support of it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jarvis. Do I have other members of the public that would like to speak on this matter? I will call for a second time.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just as a reminder before you do close the public hearing that there were 2 letters of support for this application in the supplementary agenda package.
Yes, thank you. They are both in support of the rezone as well, the 2 letters. So we'll call for a second time, and then a third and final time for bylaw number 692, zoning amendment bylaw 600-52, 6726, Eustace the Legion. Okay, seeing no further comments then, I would like to close the public hearing and turn back to council for any comments or questions of staff. You've heard the submissions and the questions. Councillor Casper, please.
Yeah, I'll move third reading.
Move third reading, please. And that's seconded by Councillor Loggins. This recommendation is not okay. This looks like the old one. It should just be that we're... Thank you. Okay, so third reading has been moved and seconded. Anything further on the motion? Councillor Berger, anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor, please? Opposed? Sorry, were you in favor, Councillor Berger? Okay, thank you. Just clarifying. And motion's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you, everyone. And many thanks to the applicant. We wish you well on that. And we just have adoption to follow at the next meeting, and you're on your way. So thank you very much. And thank you, staff. And if we could just get Councillor Parkinson back in the room. Because now we don't have quorum right now. So I'm sorry, I don't have Councillor Berger on the phone, so I just have to... Wait a minute. She's back. Okay, we can continue. So thank you. So that moves us into the public question and comment period, please. So this portion is reserved for all other matters on the agenda tonight, except for the public hearings, because we just had that public input session on both of those. So this will be for all other matters. And When you come forward, if you could please just give us your name, your address, and direct us to which item you're speaking about so we can have that handy, that would be great.
Gail Hall, 2517 Sioux River Road. I'm looking at this thing up the river road where you're going to look at that putting a manufactured home on there. And is this particular property strata?
I'm not sure. Can I get that answer, please?
Your worship, through to Ms. Hall, the particular property on Sioux River Road is not within the strata.
Is not a strata?
Excuse me, no, it's not.
I'm sorry, I understood that it was, so I guess I don't have a question. I do, however, have a concern about the way you're going about trying to fix it by changing every zone on the RU 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. That's an awful lot of changing to do to fix a mistake that you've obviously made in the process here. There must be a better way to do it than to change all of those other zones. Why don't you just admit that there was a mistake made, fix it, and get on with it? Because I find that Bylaw 696 to be overkill and a few other things that I won't comment on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Other comments from members here tonight?
Ellen Lors, 5526 Sioux Road. I too am concerned that you want to change 5 zones to allow manufactured homes in those areas. I think you should be dealing with the site-specific only. We should be looking at our OCP. We should be redoing our OCP if we feel there's ways to put in affordable homes, but I think this should be just a site-specific zone. I don't think we should be changing all the zones, a blanket zone. We know what happened last time when we tried to change the M2, M3. You can't just do that because it affects all those properties, and all those properties, those people are not here for all those properties that are RU1, RU2, RU3, RU4, those people are in RU5. Those people aren't here to speak on behalf or against that having a zoning change next to them or their own property. So you're actually zoning, upzoning, downzoning, or whatever, without having public input, and I don't think that that's appropriate. I think you should just be looking at site-specific in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lors. Other comments on tonight's agenda, please? Okay, seeing none then, we'll continue on with our agenda and move to 9.1. We have the RCMP quarterly update. And welcome staff, Sergeant MacArthur.
Thanks, Your Worship. Is it all right if I stay here with my name tag, or would you prefer if I moved up there?
We'd like it if you would come up front, please. Nice try, though, but welcome.
I apologize. I received some bad advice about that, staying back there.
Oh, I see.
So thanks for having me tonight, Your Worship and councillors. I didn't really prepare much, and I hadn't been here for a while. I'm going to come back again with the preparation and quarterly reports, but I thought since I hadn't been here for a while, I would just appear and see if there were any looming questions about anything we were doing, and just give you a very brief update. And the update is good news in that we're, with the addition of our new sergeant, Clay Weeb, who is in town right now, actually, and has just purchased a house and is finalizing that. We expect he'll be here in April, and at that point, we will be at full strength for the first time in numerous months. And just, I know that all the council members here and staff are aware of the situation, but there's a lot of confusion. I feel quite a few questions. I know that some of that confusion has probably been caused by myself with a transfer and some talk about retirement quite a little while ago. But just to clarify for those watching and those in the audience, the new position that council were generous enough to provide us has been made into a sergeant's position. His title or his function is operations non-commissioned officer, so he's going to be overseeing all the operations in the detachment. So he's not a replacement for me. I'm actually the staff sergeant and the detachment commander. For some reason, there's been a lot of confusion and questions from the public here and there over that. I don't think anyone's too terribly concerned, but it does cause them confusion. It is going to be a great thing when Corporal Weeb arrives to become a sergeant. I'm not sure if you heard, Your Worship, much about his background, but he is stationed and in charge of West Kelowna General Investigation Section, their serious crime section, brings with him a real depth of experience, and we think he's going to be a great addition here, so we're looking forward to that. We also have recently welcomed Constable David Devine from Leesam's Nass Valley, which is formerly known as New Ayanch, near Kitwanga and Terrace. And more recently than that is Matthew Kinnear, just working several shifts now, and he has transferred here from Fort St. John. So as you know how it goes, better than I do here probably, that means that very shortly there'll be people getting ready to move out, and we'll be back right into the same cycle. But the great thing is for a while we're going to be operating at full strength and have quite a few projects we're doing. Recently, for the past few months, we've been targeting impaired drivers, which is one of our initiatives, and I'm happy to tell you, I think this came out in a media release, I don't know that I've said it in council, but we do have 2 members of the detachment who made Team Alexa, which means that they processed 12 or more impaired drivers through the year. So that means they get to go to the Lieutenant Governor's home for a presentation and whatnot. It's quite I'd say it's a real honor for our officers, and we were aspiring to have at least one. We're trying to beat that this year. We've already, at this point, early in the year, have processed in excess of 18 impaired drivers, and I anticipate that's going to accelerate. We're also concentrating on West Coast Road and Souk Road due to a lot of complaints, legitimate complaints about speed there, backed up with statistics and some accident statistics. So that's going well. There's a lot more enforcement there. We'll probably be sending out some media information about that, because our number one goal is not to be laying tickets to anybody in the community, but to make the community safer. So we want to announce that you should expect a lot more enforcement, and that enforcement is going to probably move inside and up Otter Point Road very shortly, and I think that you'll see enforcement at Grant Road and Otter Point, which is a bit of a problem intersection for us. I don't have an awful lot more. We've had the odd break and enter. I can't establish a pattern yet, but we're looking into it hard, and most of that has been contained to East Souk. That's about all I have, Your Worship. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Well, thank you very much for being here this evening. We appreciate it when you have time to be with us here in Chambers. In terms of meeting full strength in April, how many members is that then?
That's 17.
That's 17, and that's...
So 13 from the District of Souk and 4 provincial positions, and we've prepared and submitted a business case for 2 additional provincial positions. We're just waiting for the decision on that.
Okay, so then that would be, so that would potentially add that number up a bit, and then the 13 would include, I think, the 2 additional that we've funded?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So you recently have gone from 11 to 13.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
That's great. Is it reasonable to say that when you have more active officers that you actually will start to see an increase in the number of files and so forth because there's more?
Completely accurate. And that's one of the reasons why our file count was down slightly. It doesn't reflect anything other than really a staffing shortage.
Right, because that's where I was in a bit of a conversation with someone, and I said, well, if you have more police, then you can actually expect your crime rate to increase.
Exactly the
Right,
case.
okay.
Exactly the case, yeah.
Okay.
The problem with crime statistics.
Right. In terms of impaired driving, is that mostly attributed to alcohol, or would it be some form of drug use?
Majority is alcohol,
Okay.
and where there's other drug use, it almost is always in combination with alcohol.
Okay. And the officers, have they started any sort of marijuana detection training with the legalization?
We're well into that. It
Okay.
predates legalization. Legalization, in my opinion, is just changing the way marijuana is being distributed, and it's already available and has been for years. So we process people for impairment by cannabis already and have done so for a long time here.
Okay, so there's no change, and we've talked
No.
about that. It's just good
That's right.
as it comes to have more conversations.
Yes.
In terms of any sort of traffic, is there a lot of texting and driving and mobile use, or is it mostly speeding and those sorts of infractions?
Well, I mean, I'd be happy to listen to input on that. We do have the odd accident that is attributable here to texting and driving. We do enforce distracted driving here. URSU have also been good in town. You may have seen them enforcing distracted driving. We've talked about ramping up and have kind of gone over some operational plans for doing that in town, and just haven't executed it yet, but it's in the works.
Okay.
Our statistics and traffic are up quite significantly.
Okay, great.
Here, so, yeah.
I've heard that there has been some inroads made with the opioid crisis. I don't know if you're seeing any shift in our numbers of that yet. I was speaking with a doctor who works in Vancouver that they're starting to see a bit of improvement. It's not much, but I'm just wondering for our community. I know that we have that here, and that many of our members in emergency support services are trained on it. I'm just wondering if there's been any change. I just find it to be quite devastating all around.
I wouldn't be able to report anything of significance
Okay.
for SUK, and we're getting overdoses, overdose that needs attention, and overdose deaths, weekly.
Yeah. It's 4 a day in BC, so I just find the number troubling.
And just to clarify that's not deaths weekly, but
Yeah.
opioid overdoses that call in emergency services. Yeah.
Anything from other members of council at this time? Councillor Casper?
I just want to have you pass on our thanks to your staff for the good work. Thank you.
I'll do that. Thanks, Councillor Casper. Just one last thing, Your Worship, is April 1st, the RCMP fiscal year, as you're well aware, it's also our year for annual performance planning. So when I come back, I'm hoping to come back March 26th, I believe, is a meeting. And if it would be appropriate in this venue to ask for input into our annual performance planning, I would like to do it then, and I can tell you what we've done the last few years, and targeting impaired drivers is one of them. I can send that out maybe so that everyone has a look at that, and I'd be interested in any feedback for 2018, 2019.
Okay. If possible, if you are able to provide us with something in advance, and then that way, in the event that you get called out to something, then we can at least have that conversation. You know, if there's any questions in particular that you're looking for answered on or something like that, then at least we can work on a response that we can provide back to you in the event that you're not able to attend for whatever reason. But we do want to extend our thanks and appreciation to everyone and all the work that you're doing, and we really appreciate this relationship and rapport that we have.
Thanks very much. I'll make sure that gets passed on.
Excellent. Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Your Worship.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Parkinson.
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you for your report. I was wondering if you find a problem with the crosswalks in the center of town. I would like to see lights on each of the crosswalks, and I was wondering if you have you had reports of any concerns about it.
I've been here almost 4 years, and I have been approached I'd say probably a couple of times every year I have someone come and ask me about enforcement in the crosswalks, and we haven't really done any coordinated enforcement there. Of course, we could be supportive for an application for lights and whatnot, but that's not my arena. But as far as enforcement, I think it's something we probably should take a look at. But the way to go, you're on the right, in my opinion, you're going down the right track, because I think it is a visibility thing. It is an environmental setup problem more so than a violator type problem. But
so that means we can count on you for support going forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
That does help when we're advocating to the ministries. We can just say, call the staff sergeant, he agrees with us. Give him your cell number.
My dog does know the Premier.
I know he does. Every bit helps. Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Take care now. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item 10.1, bylaw number 693, the Revenue Anticipation Borrowing Bylaw. And there's a recommendation that the bylaw cited as Revenue Anticipation Borrowing Bylaw 693-2018 be adopted, please. Moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Casper. Question, Councillor Casper? Nope. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. And moving to 10.2, bylaw number 696, the zoning amendment bylaw for the Z240 manufactured homes. So we'll turn this over to staff for their report. And there was the question as to why we're not addressing or doing this in a site-specific way. So if there's any way that we could get some answers on that, that would be great and appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So from the last meeting, Council directed staff to have a look at the options that were available to it to try and resolve the problem for Ms. Hicks on her property with respect to the Z240 mobile home, manufactured home. So we did look at different options. Spot zoning is not recommended. It can create confusion because every time there is a spot zone, you have to go to a different part of the bylaw to ensure that what you've done is applicable or not applicable to that specific property. And I can actually just tell you, so when Council asked for the car wash to be researched on the south side of Souk Road, that one was not a site-specific zone. They did actually change all, or is it C2 zones. So all C2 zones in the district of Souk can in fact now have a car wash. There are some site-specific zones in the district, but they are, like I say, anomalies to the bylaw, and it's not a recommended practice from a legal standpoint. So what we were able to come up with is allowing the zones on the large lot residential zones, which are RU1 through 5. And that bylaw is presented for you here. I know there was a concern mentioned earlier that there was no public process, but this is an amendment to the zoning bylaw and is required to have a public hearing. And that should Council give this second reading tonight and call the public hearing, the ad will go in the newspaper this week, and the public hearing would be scheduled on March 12th. So an advertisement would be done and the public opportunity input would be had at the public hearing on March 12th.
Okay, questions. Well, one that I had just first off is, in the case of public notification, like my understanding is if there's a property for rezone, there's the ads, but then within a certain radius, those addresses receive mailouts. So in this case where there's so many zones, what does the notification to those owners look like?
It's, through Your Worship, it's just the newspaper ad that is required. When a zoning amendment bylaw affects 10 or more properties within a municipality, individual notices are not required.
I see. Is there a way in this case then that we could consider additional ads, not just because we're not doing the mail out, and maybe other councillors can weigh on this, like should it be advertised in the Times Colonist or another media form as well, because in this case not all those, because it is the 10 or more? I just think it has a greater reach in that regard.
That would be at Council's discretion. We are meeting our statutory requirements, but if Council wanted to do something additional, that would be Council's directive.
Okay, it's just something that I want to put out there because the mailouts aren't occurring, and I just think with the number of properties so that we're as open as we can be, but I'll have others weigh in on that. Councillor Casper, please.
Yeah, just a question through you to staff. Is it not correct that there are other pending building permit applications for manufactured homes on a number of different zoned lots that are in the district of Souk now, as we were advised?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Casper, I believe there is one other application on an RU zone, but it's just come to light when we were writing this report that it's for a secondary use, which would not be covered off by this bylaw. But it is believed that there are probably a minimum of 4 to 5 other existing Z240s on RU zoned lots that would be fixed with this amendment to the zoning bylaw.
And just speaking to the additional notice requirements, I think would set a dangerous precedent in that, this municipality has always tried to operate within the confines of the provincial legislation. I think it would be patently unfair to actually single out a single amendment to a zoning bylaw by mailing out additional notices. There's a regular process, and we should subscribe to that process. We cannot be faulted for that because we're operating within the confines of the provincial legislation. And I'd hate to think of all the staff time and effort that would go into sending out individual letters or hand delivering additional notices, which the advertising, we are covered, and I would say we're very safe in that.
Just a correction, it wasn't to do letters, it was to do another form of an ad to another publication. It wasn't to do mailouts, it was just to do more advertising. Other questions from members of council? Councillor Parkinson?
Through your worship to staff, I was under the understanding from previous conversations with council that we were going to hire a consultant to review the manufactured home bylaw. And I was wondering if we have started that. I don't like to see us do blanket zone areas in all the RU zones. We have done similar things previously, and we have not succeeded very well at them, and we have to go back and fix items up. So I would like to see us have it done correctly the first time so that we don't have to review it once again. Thank you.
Your worship, through to Councillor Parkinson, I've been working away getting ready for the other two planning positions, and I've also been looking to see if I can find a consultant to come in and do some work with regards to this on our zoning bylaw. I've made some inroads and I have some contacts, but no, I haven't formally got a contract on the go at this point in time. I hope to within the next week or so.
So wouldn't it be prudent of us to wait until that happens before we move forward on zoning or changing these zonings in so many different areas?
I think, if I may, Mr. Howitt, that was something that council had considered. However, it was the case of going back to last year, the motion that council resolved was to amend the zoning bylaw. So that was the direction that was presented to staff, and that's where we're at today now. But that raises a good point. Councillor Loggins, then to Councillor Casper.
Thank you, Your Worship. I struggle with this one because I fully support the effort that staff has done with this amendment. I think it is exactly what we need, and I disagree with Councillor Parkinson about needing to look further into changing the bylaw and have a consultant in. And the reason for that is that this bylaw doesn't up zone or down zone any of the zones. It's not increasing or decreasing units. It remains primary use only, and it's only reframing our societal prejudice on the definition of a home. That's all we're doing. the manufactured homes that are part of this bylaw are all certified to building code. There's no difference between them and the other homes that are in these zones. So I don't see the reason why we wouldn't pass this bylaw, or this amendment, rather.
Okay, Councillor Casper, please.
Yeah, I think it should be clarified that the manufactured home component or park component of our zoning bylaw applies strictly to rental parks and for what they call park models of manufactured homes, which are substantially different than what is on the market currently. And when we were presented by a homeowner who advised us of the problem, it's my understanding that they are the purchaser, have the option to purchase a double wide manufactured home that is 1,400 square feet. That's not a single wide unit. And I agree with Councillor Logan's that we have to take every effort to remove the stigma associated with the past definition of a mobile home, and the fact that the market that is developing these alternate forms of housing, be they modular homes or manufactured homes, under the two different categories approved by the province of British Columbia and other provinces in Canada, the Canadian Building Code and the BC Building Code, should be accepted within our municipality. And when you look at the information that we were presented on the costs associated with the homes, they speak loud and clear of providing some additional level of affordability and options for people. I've looked at some of the pictures that were presented in the reports, and I'm saying in a positive fashion, some of them look like some of the housing that is located in Sun River right now. And if any member of the public wants to go through the staff report and the color examples that are online, you look at them very closely and you think, gee whiz, they're not that much different in sort of shape, character, design, sloping of roofs, etc., than some buildings in Sun River that this council really had no say as to whether they go there or not, or what they look like. And in most cases, it's the people who develop land that either put a covenant on the property or a prospectus that's registered on title. Those developers make the conscious choice to decide what type of housing gets developed on those properties. I don't think it's within our purview to do that. We should allow the marketplace and the freedom of consumers to choose what they want to put on their lots that they own within our municipality. And some of those lots have been around for many, many years, and some of them don't have homes on them. Some of them may be replacing homes or upgrading, and they may choose to take this option. So that's why I'm going to be supporting the recommendation or that we proceed with first and second reading on the bylaw, and I would so move.
Okay, so first and second reading is zoning amendment bylaw 696, 2018 has been moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Loggins. So on the motion, please, Councillor Parkinson.
Through your worship, just a comment. I have family who live in a manufactured home. I have no problem with that. My point being was that we go and we put these zones in and we just do so many of them at one time, just like we did with the suites all over town. And now there's a huge problem with parking issues everywhere, and that would be the main concern with residents living there, that people are parking on the streets, there's not enough room. And I know that they're out in the rural area and there's lots of room out there, but I just think that we do not take the time to look at what we're doing before we go and we make these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Loggins, please.
And I do appreciate that comment, Councillor Parkinson. However, this amendment does not affect the number of units on the properties. So there won't be any, it's not going to be 20 people parking there for an additional suite added. It's one dwelling, it's one unit. And there's no change, there's no increase, there's no decrease. It's not making that effect.
And that is exactly what I just stated when I spoke, that it would not have any problems with the parking. I just said that we go forward, we make these different motions, and then we always have to go back and fix things. So I believe that we follow our bylaws and our policies, and that we do what we've set out, and then we correct them. And if that's okay, then it works out really well.
Okay, seeing no other hands then, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Parkinson is opposed, so the motion's carried. And the next piece is that a public hearing.
I'll move that a public hearing be scheduled.
Okay. So that's been moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Parkinson for the public hearing, which will be on March the 12th. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? And that too is carried. That one is carried unanimously. Okay. So March the 12th, and that'll be held, we move it to the start, and that'll allow for public submissions on all property owners that are impacted. So to be continued. Okay. Thank you, staff and council. Moving along to 11.1, please. We have a report here regarding communities in bloom. Is there anything further from staff than what's on the report provided? I think you're looking for our direction on how we can proceed with this.
Yes, that's correct, Your Worship. Nothing further to the report, just that there would be an additional $2,500 requested for inclusion in the budget for a coordinator, as we do not have the staff resources in-house to accommodate the requirements of the Community in Bloom program for this year.
Okay, I think it's a good idea, but I'll turn that to council. Councillor Casper?
Yeah, just a question. So is this an additional amount, or is this an amount?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Casper, yes, it's an additional amount. The $2,500 that is already provided for in the budget is for the operational side of doing the Communities in Bloom for the plants and those sorts of things.
Right.
This, there are, if you look at the application on the next page, this section here talks about the requirements of the program, which we would attribute to the coordinator. There's a requirement to make a community profile book, to host a luncheon, tours, those sorts of things, which we just we have tried to do in-house before, but just don't have the resources available at this time.
Okay, I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, so move the recommendation by Councillor Casper. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, so the motion should be that council support the additional $2,500 and to engage a coordinator for the 2018 program.
Yeah, that's my motion.
Is that good?
Yeah,
okay.
That's good.
And that's seconded by Councillor Loggins. Okay. Question, counter, comment, Councillor Parkinson.
Through your worship. So the last time we participated was 2016, and we hired a coordinator to do the project. And we found that hiring a coordinator does not have the information that's required from the district to put together the profile book. There were sections missing from the profile book that were required. We were fortunate that we didn't do too badly because of it. But without staff support, I don't think that we could put a proposal together to get 5 blooms again.
I would say that we are, staff can definitely help the coordinator put these things together, but don't have the resources to take on all of the requirements individually without any outside assistance.
So is it reasonable then that the coordinator could have a meeting with, as things get planned, with a few members of staff, or maybe call all the staff in together, here's some pieces, or can you provide this information or that? Because I agree that was, in the past when we've done the book, there is a lot of information there that's needed, which is probably why it's landed with our staff, and that was a struggle the last time, having seen that particular product, and it cannot be. They wouldn't be able to complete it without some help from staff. But I think in this case, the coordinator would organize everything and plan all the events and lunch and whatever, and they would just have the ability to meet with staff.
Yeah, I think, like I say, we would do what we can certainly to help them and make sure that those requirements are being met, but they would be, I guess, taking on the brunt of the load there. We would provide whatever knowledge and expertise that we have in-house that is needed. I don't know if there's any opportunities to work with any members of the SPA committee once it's reconvened, if they happen to have any of that knowledge that they could lend to that coordinator as well.
Okay. Councillor Parkinson, you've been very active in this past, so like hearing this from staff, does that provide some comfort that we could pull it off?
Through your worship, the other thing that we lacked when we did it last year was that we had an informal meeting up here with the judges and members of the committee, and there was a slide presentation of what the district's doing. So that was quite a bit of work as well. And if we go through the marks that we received, there were all sorts of things that we had to upgrade on. So
we'll give it the best shot. Councillor Casper?
Well, I would suggest that if we could take the last book that we did and build upon that, and I'm sure that if questions were asked of staff, what is new or different in the municipality that could be added to the tour, which I, volunteered to drive the participants around to all the different locations that I was given, and they all got a prompting sheet as to what we were going to visit, and then they made comments accordingly. So I don't think it's going to be an onerous task. I think if you go by what's been done historically, there's basically a blueprint on how this is done, and I think that if we approach it that way, it shouldn't get too complicated. And I'd just like to add that if need be, I'm willing to volunteer as a driver like I did before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casper. So part of this here is to create a local In Bloom Action Committee. So I'm just wondering, where would the In Bloom Committee land? Once we have it's something that we could discuss with the SPA committee. It's just not formed yet. So, and whether or not they want to do it is another question, right? So I don't want to just suppose and put it there. But there is the case that, obviously this is what I'm just saying it should plan to do. So any thoughts on that? Does anyone? Councillor Parkinson?
In the previous years, we've had approximately 40 volunteers on the committee, working throughout the town doing different things. So if it goes to the SPA committee, I would like to see how many volunteers come forward to participate in it, because there is a lot of work involved in it, and you can't just do it with a handful of people.
So are you comfortable that this, because you're sort of involved with the SPA committee, that it lands there? Is that okay with you?
That's okay. I would just like to do a call out to see whether there are volunteers to come forward. And actually, there probably would be some great people that were on the committee that should be applying for the position.
To be in the In Bloom, for the In Bloom committee. Can we send out a media release on this, provided the motion passes? I think that would be a good way to kick it off. And then I think it's a good opportunity to share why it's a good idea and what it does and how it showcases our community.
Yeah, if I may, I was just advised that we do have 2 previous books that we have compiled that can be used as the resource. So we can certainly, as Councillor Casper mentioned, build on that and provide that information. So staff are confident that we have enough to start, that it's not going to take that. If we have the coordinator, there's enough information to provide them with some input from staff.
Okay. No, that's great. And Councillor Parkinson, I'll be in town this time. I don't want to miss it, so I'll be there to help you as well and to support in whatever way I can. Okay. All right, so we have a question, or we have a motion. It's been moved and seconded. Anything further then? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. I think it's a great little program. Okay, so I'm not seeing any new business, so I'm going to the correspondence file. And there was one thing I wanted to talk about. Councillor Loggins, please.
There was one I just wanted to pull out, which was the letter from School District 62 about the new superintendent of schools. And since SD62 is the largest employer in our community, and obviously we have a lot of children involved there, I was hoping we could send a letter of thanks to Mr. Cambridge for his impact on our community over the years, and also to Mr. Stinson, congratulating him on the new position.
Okay, so how about a welcome letter and a thank you card? All right, I think that would be more appropriate. Is that all right? Okay, so if we could have a thank you letter thank you card and a welcome letter prepared on those. And the one that I wanted to talk about is, actually there's a couple, is the very last one is a letter from our Rotary Club. You'll see this year that they are doing a different event. Rather than their typical spring trade show and auction, they are changing this year to do a fundraising dinner instead. And that's on May 12th, and it's to replace, it'll be held in place. So I'm raising this, because I think it'd be great for us to get out and to support the Rotary Club. But secondly, we typically use that as a way to communicate what's happening with the district with our residents and so forth at the fair. So because that event isn't happening, I think we need to think of another way to sort of share what we're up to, particularly with the budget. So I know that and I didn't know that when we planned our March open house event, which is held in the evening. And then, of course, the Rotary auction during the day on Saturday would capture a different demographic. So I just think whether it's for the budget as we head towards what the final budget is, or do we tie it in with our annual report, which I think should have its own sort of meeting? It's just something should be done, because we relied on this Rotary event to be like, oh, okay, we're going to be there, and everyone else is too, and it's a great way to engage. So what can we do instead of? So I don't know that we have to answer that this evening, but I think it's something that we need to think about going forward in terms of what we can do. I think something during the day is better, because then we would capture a different group of people than at night. So it's just food for thought. I think it's just something important that we give thought to, that's happening. The other letters I just wanted to raise was that we had already discussed our position on the transportation service, and I think there was a few other letters from municipalities that were in here, so just wanted to point that out. We're not alone there. And I think that was it. So is there anything other on the correspondence from anyone?
I'll move that we received.
Okay, motion to receive the correspondence by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Loggins. All those in favor of receipt? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And some reports, verbal reports from anyone? Councillor Parkinson?
Through your worship, I attended the Temec Treaty negotiation meeting last week. I also attended the Sauk Region Historical Society meeting on behalf of Councillor Pearson, because he wasn't there. And it was a very good meeting with a lot of information. They have an event coming up in May, which is, gentlemen, what is it? What's the event?
They're not allowed to speak.
Oh, they can speak. I forgot the title. Come on. Jeez. There you go. Oh, my God. And then I also attended the Emergency Services Information Session, which had a great turnout here. There were over 120 people here, and the information going out was really well received, and questions were asked. And I also attended CD Saturday. And just a reminder that Anti-Bullying Day is coming up on Wednesday. This Wednesday. Wear your pink.
Okay. Councillor Casper.
Yeah, I just want to advise that I did attend 2 meetings on your behalf at the CRD, the Regional Parks Committee meeting, and the Integrated Resource Management Committee. Is that the correct name?
Yeah.
I got it right. And I don't really have anything to report that's earth-shattering, so I won't say anything. Thanks.
Councillor Loggins?
I just went to the library board AGM, which was a nice eye-opening meeting for me to get to know the organization and what the plans are for SUC. Again, nothing too eye-opening. I think everyone's pretty aware of what's going on so far. That's all that we know, or that I know as well. And then went to the Taste of BC, which is always a fun event. Councillor Parkinson was there as well, and that was an excellent showing of local fare. So that's about it.
So thank you, Councillor Casper, for attending the CRD meetings. I was on UBCM executive meetings and advocacy days. So where that is every February, the UBCM executive tries to meet with as many MLAs as possible as they can. And we put together the membership, and the members are all municipalities, local government in BC. And there were 3 priorities that have been worked on, that is housing, the opioid crisis, and infrastructure funding. So incidentally, the BC provincial budget came out at the same time. However, the priorities still remained. So with housing, if you go onto the UBCM's website, you'll see the House for Everyone, the housing report that came out, and what was said was that a lot of what you see in the budget now is being reflected and has come from the UBCM advocacy work. The minister in charge of housing has a very close rapport with this UBCM, so that was really great to see, and we'll see some action on that. Other parts with the opioid crisis was the funding that you see reflected. And in terms of infrastructure, that was sort of my piece to bring to the MLA's attention, as well as the Premier and the Minister of Local Government, is with the federal funding for infrastructure, the feds have committed to fund 40% of infrastructure projects. We've been advocating that the province matches their with a 40% match, leaving local government to achieve just the 20%. So when you think of what 1% tax increase generates $70,000, a smaller community can only be $7,000. So having the 2 local governments share 80% makes it easier for us to achieve that 20%. Nothing can happen above ground if the underground works, water, wastewater, road networks and the like are not being maintained. We've also advocated that the funding coming in from the feds funnels into locally owned and operated infrastructure projects and not just on provincial owned infrastructure. So the agreement between the federal government has to be struck by the end of March. And this is important because in the past the feds have only funded maybe 33%. So with them increasing to 40, other provinces have been like, well, we don't need to contribute as much. And that's why there's this humongous infrastructure deficit in our country, because then it all falls onto local government and we can't take that amount of level. So we'll see how that plays out. The other piece was the cannabis. We've heard how that date is going to shift. If you look at the UBCM's platform and what has been announced by the province, there's almost a mirrored reflection on everything from minimum age, possession limits, and the like. Where there's a bit of differ is where the UBCM said that a recreational place or a place to use should be worked out, where the province is not responding on that right now. So this would be a place, a smoking lounge or a cannabis lounge per se. At this point, that is not being entertained. It doesn't mean that it won't come out in the future. I think it's just from a regulatory purpose, there's a lot to get out in the meantime. So those were those pieces, and then the other one was childcare. And there will be extensive outreach between each community, whether it's school districts and community and the like, to examine exactly what type of child care is needed. We've heard here a bit of before and after school care being a need within our communities, so that's perhaps something that we can look into and see. As I mentioned in my earlier comments, we do have a meeting planned with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure to find out where we're at with the next phase of Highway 14 improvements. The first part that rolled out, the $10 million, was more about things that were in the works that needed to be done. But in terms of the overall corridor study and medium improvements, I'd like to see where we're going with that and maybe get some direction, hopefully. We'll see how that goes. And in terms of healthcare, the South Island Division of Family Practice, along with Island Health and along with the SUP Planning Steering Committee and my Primary Health Working Services Group, have all been working together and put forward a grant, or actually Island Health put it forward, and that is to look at expanding our existing primary health network. So we're waiting to see what that looks like. And what that means is, when you're talking what is primary health network, this is like your family physicians, because if you take a preventative approach to health, then maybe it's less, I guess when you look at how you treat health, it'd be better if I had a family doctor I can see regularly for blood work, get my prescriptions, all of that, as opposed to having to run into emergency to get a prescription refill. That's the most expensive way for me to have that sort of thing treated, is in an emergency room. So this way, when we look at...
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm having difficulty hearing her, Mayor. Thank you.
So this way, if we focus on within our own team-based approach to health and see how that works, then we can hopefully see that. So that's been what my working group has been focusing on, and that's what's resonating with the SUP Planning Steering Committee, as well as all the stakeholders within our community. There also may be a way to have a nurse in practice or a nurse practitioner to take on some of the load that physicians face, because sometimes they can do work that and do some things that will then free up a physician to have more time to meet new patients and to see more, because we know we have a long list within our community. So we'll hopefully get some announcement on that soon to see how that goes. Some people say, well, why aren't you building something? Why aren't you putting something on Lot A? Well, to me, that's the easiest thing to do, is to build a new building. The hard thing is finding the dedicated professional staff to be in the building to see people. We are at a time where we're not the only community facing a physician shortage, so we're up against everybody else. So having the right network that works with recruitment and retention is very important, and our physicians have done an excellent job in that. They're just running out of space. So hopefully get more on that later. So it's an exciting time anyway, and we'll see how that goes. So I think that's about it. And on that, we don't have any in-camera resolutions to report out. So a motion to adjourn, please.